Live. I'm Brian Cheney. Monday, May 15th, going in depth on a couple of topics tonight. We're hearing from parents who lost their daughters in flash flooding, what they want you to know before heading out. Also taking a closer look at the whistleblower piece alleging the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints misused some funding. Before we dive in, let's take a look at what is making headlines tonight. A lot of these stories you can find on our website right now, KUTV.com. New details after officers found two bodies in a Sugar House office complex on Saturday. Salt Lake police say 49-year-old Parth Gandhi killed his 16-year-old son inside of the building, then took his own life. We are also learning the identity of a person found dead in a field over the weekend. Salt Lake police found 46-year-old Jenny Sosi near 2nd West and 5th South. At least 3 people are dead and multiple others wounded after a shooting in Farmington, New Mexico today. Farmington's about 200 miles northwest of Santa Fe. Police say one suspect was confronted and killed on scene. Finally making our headlines tonight, it is National Police Week. President Joe Biden says Americans owe officers and their families a debt of gratitude. Instead of defunding the police, Biden says a better option is to give law enforcement agencies what they need to combat crime. As we go in depth tonight, you can always get in touch with us during the show. Use the hashtag 2NewsLive to join the conversation. You can always find me on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Send a direct message there to weigh in. Let's take a live look right now. A few different traffic-related issues that we're following for you in Utah County. Both of them have road closures in the area. A crash on Highway 6 has closed both directions of travel. This is a UDOT camera that is relatively close to the area. You can actually make out off in the distance where we are talking about. You can see some cars parked up there on Highway 6 a few miles away from this camera. According to UDOT, drivers should expect significant delays. This crash is just east of the junction with Highway 89 near Thistle. It's in an area known as the Red Narrows, just a few miles to the east. We know there's one fatality, another serious injury associated with the crash, which happened around 3 o'clock. Speaking of Thistle, nearby on Highway 89, this is Thistle for you. There is a creek there that has overflowed its banks. It breached a berm. Right now, the water is flowing over Highway 89. UDOT has been working on this area for weeks now. They even set up this mobile traffic camera so they could get a better look at the area. So 89 closed from Fairview to US 6, this junction area. No estimated time of reopening the roadway. Taking a live look across the Salt Lake Valley from our roof cam on top of the Wells Fargo building here downtown Salt Lake City. Looks like some showers off in the distance. Wouldn't surprise me based on the last couple of days where we've experienced some scattered storms across parts of the Salt Lake Valley, also parts of northern Utah. So Chase is here with us. Chase, when you look out and you see this,
nice little thunderstorm.
Yeah, a little. And they moved through nicely last night. I know you had a really interesting video from your backyard panning across. I was expecting to see Francis running and scurrying in, but I didn't see that. But then, of course, the lightning bolts. We had so many great photos sent our way.
We did. We had a little bit more moisture to work with yesterday, and so during the daytime heating, things really were unstable, and then boom, we had some nice little thunderstorms, and we're tracking a couple right now.
Speaking of one of your favorite places on the planet.
I know, Bear Lake. I'm a little biased, can be honest with you. Bear Lake is heaven on earth, and we're filling up Bear Lake right now, which is what we like to see. Bear Lake has been quite low lately, and so it's forecast to maybe climb 10 feet this spring and summer with all of the runoff that is now really picking up steam. And just a few weeks ago, this lake was frozen, so it's really cold right now.
You don't go up there and mess around when this lake is frozen, though. You're a summer guy on this lake.
I go up there. Beaver Mountain is nearby, so do a little bit of skiing. But yes, the summer.
He's not up there ice fishing. Okay, let's be real here. No. A summer guy at Bear Lake.
All right, so let's get to your forecast. We're melting a lot of that snow right now, and our latest numbers show that we are seeing those numbers drop below 50%. We're watching that snow water equivalent. We're now at 13.5. Of course, last month we had that all-time record of 30 inches, how much water is in that snowpack. So we have 45% left, and a lot of that is going to be coming down over the next couple of weeks because I am forecasting summer-like temperatures. It looks very warm. We're talking lots of 80s in northern Utah and 90s down south. We're still going to have some isolated thunderstorms, kind of an early summer-like pattern. Moisture has been moving in, so we'll be tracking these storms for most of this week. kind of bubbling up in the afternoon and evening, coming off the mountains. Very typical of that summer pattern that we typically see later in the summer. Of course, though, we're watching all those rivers and creeks. There's going to be some localized flooding. Those rivers are very dangerous. You have to just avoid, please. It's not worth it. Water is very cold. 90 degrees so far, our high temperature in St. George. Look at all the 70s and 80s across central and northern Utah. So it's very comfortable. But again, you got to keep your eyes to the sky because there could be 1 or 2 storms rolling in. And that's exactly what we're seeing right there. You can see that thunder and some of that lightning moving right into downtown Salt Lake. But it's very isolated. Most of the Wasatch Front is calm. Light shower rolling through Utah County. There's a few more to our west out in Tooele and Box Elder County. We'll see if they'll make it in later this evening. But right when that sun goes down, we lose that instability you need, that energy for storms. So they're going to fall apart. We have a few of these isolated showers east of I-15, mainly over the mountains of portions of central and southern Utah. So notice, though, by about 8 o'clock, still a few lingering showers, but they're falling apart right after that. So we'll be dry tonight and into tomorrow morning. We'll have a few clouds, and we're going to do all over again a chance for these widely scattered hit or miss showers and thunderstorms. Rain chances generally 10–20%. Highs tomorrow, kind of like today, low 80s along the Wasatch Front, upper 70s, low 80s in central Utah and St. George. You're going to be in the low 90s. There's those rain chances for the rest of the week, 10–20% like I mentioned. However, Thursday might be our best chance to get maybe a few more storms to roll into the valleys here in northern Utah. Now, St. George, you could see a stray shower or thunderstorm this week, especially Wednesday through Saturday. And look at your temperatures hovering in the low 90s. Wednesday is at 89, but it's still very warm and above average. Overnight lows in the mid-60s. Salt Lake, 58 tonight, low 80s tomorrow and on Wednesday. Thursday, that's our best chance for a couple storms. So we've dropped the temperatures a bit into the upper 70s. Might linger into Friday morning, but the weekend is shaping up to be very pleasant and dry right now. Still could see a stray mountain thunderstorm with these very warm temperatures. Look at Sunday getting close to 90 degrees.
We make changes here when it comes to the weather so fast. I mean, it's just like when everyone's like, oh, we got to get this winter thing done with.
We got rid of it.
It flips so fast. And
last week we were in the 70s, so we had, a couple weeks of spring, but this is a little bit more summer-like.
Gosh, you think 5 months, right, where you're just like, well, if you're not really digging this, you're waiting, right? So I know there were a lot of people that were ready, it seems like.
I think everybody, for the most part, was ready for the warmth.
I know we can't speak for 100%.
No.
However, this is now the time where there's probably some ramped up flooding potential in some areas, right?
Yeah, the next couple weeks, I think a good chunk of that snowpack that's still up there is really going to be coming down. Because if you think about it, we're in the 80s here in northern Utah, at least in the lower valleys. You factor in the elevation, those peaks. They're now going to be into the 50s and 60s. They've been hovering in the 30s and 40s. So again, all that snow up high, it's going to take some time, but this is the temperatures that they need to melt that snow.
Thank you, Chase. Remember to download our 2 News weather app to know about changes in your neighborhood. You can get updated forecasts, some live radar right on your phone. The app is free to download. This time of year, there begins to be a significant concern surrounding some of our popular recreation spots, specifically in parts of southern and central Utah, where people venture into slot canyons. Last week, there was a night on 2 News at 10 o'clock. You heard from 2 parents who lost their daughters in a flash flood about 3 years ago now. Here's what you didn't hear from them in that story.
It's okay to cancel plans. If the weather's not looking great, we know that we have a higher water content just in the mountains. And if you're going to be in the canyons, it goes somewhere, right? So even if it may feel cold to you and maybe there's not anything in the forecast, does not mean that that higher snowpack's not going to melt and come rushing down where it needs to. And so err on the side of caution is what I would say. We're drawn to the canyons often, like we are still that, and there is definitely a higher alert with, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it to go do that thing that we really want to do? Because we know what the cost is.
You have to have a healthy respect for southern Utah. I mean, those canyons, those slot canyons specifically, they're beautiful.
They are.
They've been forged from water. And, and all these big storms and things that come rolling through there, that is what makes them so beautiful. But you have to have that healthy respect, too, of, the force of nature that goes through those canyons. Everything up here in northern Utah, you know, and this area will drain through those canyons down there. And as we have the runoff, especially this year with all the snow and things that we've gotten, you know, that's all gonna make its way down to southern Utah.
Does this make it more concerning for you?
Yes.
This year specifically,
It
based on the
does.
snow we've had?
Yeah, well, because over Easter, that's typically where we found ourselves. You know, and over Mother's Day, that's where we typically found ourselves. And now we're looking at, you know, we have time off, we're going to go do something, but where do we actually go, and is it reasonable to go there? You check the weather report. I've been checking weather reports for the last month, and like just seeing what's been happening now, I don't know that our confidence level is there. You know, so finding new places that are not, you know, because people typically go down south this time of year because it's warm, right? We have warmer temperatures, we're out of the snow, but that snow is still going somewhere. So definitely a bigger concern this year. Even just going back to visit, driving through some of those roads that are dirt roads, not even just being in the slot canyons, there's a higher level of concern based on the weather and the water.
Well, thankful to both Becky and Tim for sitting down, spending some time talking about this, about the 3-year anniversary of losing their 2 girls. Very tough to talk about, but they've talked about this a lot since. It's part of the grieving process, and they have a lot of great messages for parents out there. If you'd like to see our piece from late last week, it's on KUTV.com right now, but it's also on our YouTube channel.
Those funds weren't used the way they were appropriated to be used.
As a Christian church, we believe that someday Jesus Christ will return, but that's not why we have those resources. It's for the continuing operation and for the future.
Last night on 60 Minutes right here on 2 News, a whistleblower speaks out after reporting the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to the Internal Revenue Service in 2019, questioning how money is being spent by the church. Bishop Christopher Waddell, who you just heard from, defended the church and their financial holdings and assets. David Nielsen, the man deemed as the whistleblower, was a senior portfolio manager at Ensign Peak Advisors for nearly a decade. Now, Ensign Peak is the affiliated investment management group for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. After resigning from Ensign Peak in 2019, he filed a report with the IRS alleging the church had accumulated $100 billion in assets and used the money to bail out businesses with church ties and violated its religious tax exemption status. In the 60 Minutes report, the correspondent references information from Mormon Leaks, a whistleblowing organization focusing on exposing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Some of the tone in the 60 Minutes report focuses on a lack of transparency, especially with those contributing to the church financially, known as tithing.
For me, though, to be honest with you, Brian, I don't care so much about whether or not they bailed out an insurance company or whatever it is they spent the money on. I mean, if they did something illegal, they should be held accountable. But what the real issue is here is the fact that they kept it secret. If they want to bail out Beneficial Life and it's not illegal, do it. They want to help build City Creek Mall and it's not illegal, do it. Just be transparent about it and let their stakeholders, which are the members, make fully informed decisions when providing financial support for the church. And I would guess that the majority of tithe payers in the church would continue paying tithing, even with the increased transparency, but at least the church would be on solid ethical ground.
So Ryan and I spoke at length. He's covered this subject for years. Mormon Leaks actually ended their coverage in 2022. I also spoke at length with a religious studies professor today. Insightful conversation. She mentioned the issue of sacred, secret, private, confidential. While not a business expert, but an expert in Mormon studies, she wasn't surprised to hear the dollar amount reached or exceeded $100 billion.
Choose what you get mad at them for. That because they are so good at business, or because they should be a religion and not be good at business, right?
What do you think this does moving forward for them? Does it do anything?
No. The question is, do the Latter-day Saints meet their moral obligation as well as their citizenship obligation in the way they handle their money? I think that as someone who used to work for the federal government as an attorney, you can tell by the IRS, not just reticence, because absolutely, religion is a problem area for the IRS on how to regulate that across the board for all the different kinds of religions that are in America. They're acting philanthropically and so the IRS has a tough job on that. That the IRS has expressed no interest in this case tells you something. And secondly, that the SEC essentially took no action that was satisfying at all to the person who filed this complaint. I suppose you could say the SEC doesn't know its job, but I tend to think it knows enough of its job to rise to the level of the kind of complaint that was made here about this amount of money and its action in the market. Again, that's the question here. The SEC isn't concerned about how they're investing their money necessarily. They're just trying to make sure they're not moving the market with how they're investing their money. And they essentially said the way you've organized how you're spending this money is the problem. That the brain behind all this money is hiding behind all these subsidiary countries. So you need to look at how you're organizing this. And that is a violation, but it's a parking ticket.
You may remember in February, the SEC charged Ensign Peak for 3 violations. Those were failing to file disclosure forms of church equity investments, filing forms for shell companies which obscured the church's portfolio, and filing forms mistaking Ensign Peak's control over the church's investments. Ensign Peak paid about $4 million in penalty to settle the charges. The church agreed to pay $1 million. I reached out to the SEC today. They would not comment further on this. We did also reach out to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints after hearing about this and seeing the whistleblower piece last night. They did release a statement that reads here in part. We'll highlight it for you so you can take a better look at some of this language. The church believes in being financially responsible by carefully ensuring it has adequate resources available to fulfill its divinely appointed responsibilities. They also went on to say it is unfortunate 60 Minutes sought to elevate a story based on unfounded allegations by a former employee who has a different view on how the church should manage its resources. The full statement is on our website right now, KUTV.com. So once we get out of here, we will say goodbye. Thanks for watching 2 News Live. We had to go in depth on this topic today based on the fact that it was on our air last night. Lots of questions surrounding this. A lot of it stems back from February 2023 when the SEC released some of its findings. You can see more of our headlines and today's top stories on our website right now, KUTV.com.